So I have worked at Co-op for 8 years now, and before that I was at Dentsu working across lots of different clients, everyone from Man United to Antler Luggage and Travelex, for instance. And I'll go on to my first slide. At Co-op we have a few different businesses. You'll have heard of food as one of the main ones, but we also have a funeral care business, a legal services business, and also insurance. I was working across the funeral care business during the pandemic, so that definitely kept me busy. And we've also got Kat in the room here who works across funeral care and our legal services business. And before that I was at an agency doing SEO and PPC, so it's a background. SEO has changed a lot in that time, but influencing is still really, really key and the way to get your changes across. I'll be talking through a few different aspects of how you can do that, and one of the first ones that is really important is trust, so that trust equation that you may have heard of. Now that's made up of a few different elements. So you've got your credibility, so the actual words that you speak, how you come across, your reliability, so your actions, intimacy, so those around you trusting you and you also trusting them, and lastly self-orientation, so your focus, are you focused on their objectives or are you more focused on your own, and how does that come across? So all this helps to, especially if you're new to a client or to a business, all of this helps to increase that trust in you. And this is also to help the, when we're talking about SEO and how to improve our rankings and traffic, we want to be smarter with the recommendations as well, not just work harder. So intros with different teams, it can sometimes feel like there are so many different people that we need to interact with and lots coming at you. So actually let's just take a bit of a step back and understand the structure. So who can we speak to? Marketing teams, social media, you've got your commercial teams. At food, for instance, at Co-op, there are trade planners who are really useful. It's not just the marketing team that we need to be interacting with all the time. Who do you need to influence as well to get that buy-in? I think sometimes it's quite easy to continue to work with your day-to-day contacts, and actually you end up neglecting maybe some of the senior people who are the ones who hold the budget and will be the ones who are there championing you. I know within our funeral care business we've got a really strong head of digital, and she has very much championed SEO all this time and has really helped us get to the forefront, got us introductions with the MDs. That's great exposure for us to improve our results and see that traction. So really key to get them on your side. Find out what their processes are when you get to meet them. How can you feed into that? Does it feel a bit disjointed? An example within food recently, SEO have always, I'd say, been a bit of a tick box exercise at the end of the process. We've been asked to optimise a page a few weeks before it goes live, so a seasonal page for instance. I've just found out that actually the trade planning team for seasonal products work 18 months out, so actually if I wanted to influence products for Easter of 2024 I'd need to do it now, but actually been getting involved far too late, 15-16 months late in the process. So asking those questions, being open about that is really key. What are their challenges, just so that you can start to get that into your head and understand, can I impact this? Is there anything that comes to mind, or do you need to take it away? What does good look like between the two of you as well? Because I think sometimes people have got different expectations. They might have had great SEOs before, they might have had poor SEOs, so just trying to get a level playing field in place. And also this is your opportunity to showcase your knowledge as well. So what's out there, what does the content look like that your competitors are producing, what's live, what direction do you want to be taking? Who sets the theme? So this is really important, so that you're speaking the same language as them, and also helps to start to populate your content plan. You can start to see how your research feeds into that. do provide that value, and always try and preempt the buyer's next steps so that you're really looking at it end to end. And you will have data that the other teams don't have, so actually start using that and start sharing that. I've got an example here within food where there was a deal that was, there were 2 deals that were live throughout the year, equally, 50-50 split. You can see deal 1 gets a lot more traffic versus deal 2. Now the trade planning team and commercial team was seeing that deal 1 drove the most revenue for us and actually increased basket size as well when people went in store. But this gave them that additional direction to say, we're going to upweight deal 1 into 2023 because the search terms that you're showing us indicates that deal, and this data just gives us that extra tick point and tick box to say, yes, this is definitely the direction we need to be going in. In terms of resource, I think a lot of us have spoken about resource today and how difficult it is sometimes to achieve it. So do find out what resource is available, how often are your releases, how and where can you feed into them. There's always different formats, whether it's Jira, whether it's a ticket on a Trello board, and familiarising yourself with that, and as Roxana said, speak the same language so that you are coming across as on their side rather than being all for you. And then in terms of retainers, do you have content and dev retainers set up? How can you find out more about those? Is that in-house? Is it with your agency? And also, who makes the content changes and the dev changes? There was an example on our recipes site earlier on in the year, which I'd started working on. We had agency recommendations, which were all about adding more internal links, adding category content. I then went into the CMS and realised that the teams hadn't actually been looking at it that in depth, so we couldn't actually make any changes in terms of internal linking. We couldn't add any category content because that wasn't part of the template. So actually those recommendations unfortunately were redundant up until that point because we couldn't physically activate them on site. So really useful to understand what you can and can't do at the start so you're not wasting time in the meantime. Do take a step back, so what gaps are you spotting as you're starting to audit the sites and start to put feelers out as to what changes can be made and how you can start to implement some of these. And we know that there's a lot coming at us, so if you could only implement one action which would give you that biggest impact, so it can give you a real focus. If in the next 4 weeks, for instance, 8 weeks, what would you like to achieve? Stick to that so you're not spreading yourself too thin. And also that should help to make you understand where you should be spending your time as well, or most of your time, to help to gain traction over time. And then when it comes to implementation, I just mentioned about what can be edited in the CMS, but what can be edited without any dev resource so that you can get things live as quickly as possible. Do push for CMS access, and obviously approval processes are really key so there are no nasty surprises. And then agree ownership as well as to what you can change on site, just so that you take on that ownership as well, you're not just waiting on other people all the time. In terms of quick wins, I've got another example here. So this is all about maximising branded search. So it might be that you're looking at everything saying, well, there's a few issues, we can't make changes to the templates, for instance. This basically shows that our products have been going live with aligned with the above line activity. Actually, 6 weeks before that is when people started searching for our Christmas products. So actually we were directing people to a page that just said, come back soon. So actually it was just a fairly blank page. So actually by changing the product cycle and that going live sooner, we can make more of that traffic that's really valuable to people who already want to shop with us, and obviously makes for a much better customer experience. In terms of strategy, obviously integration is really key, and you want to be laser focused on what is in your control to change. what is that smallest change that you can make, and go after that as much as you can, rather than getting sometimes sidelined by more projects coming in. And do remember to split up your recommendations as in small manageable chunks, so that you can get those grouped together nicely and aligned to that available resource. In terms of your strategy, how do you perform against the whole client journey? I think within funeral care, for instance, there was a real emphasis around the types of certain funeral services that you can have, and that's natural that we're going to focus around those, but actually we found some gaps around the awareness stage of finding a funeral director, and also the aftercare, which is really important to our clients. So it's about educating people around you and saying, actually, there are some real gaps here, and we need to start closing these, because otherwise we'll never hone in on the competition. And yeah, start selling this in as early as possible, so that you can get more people on your side. Be proactive, so do a bit of an audit on where your time's spent. If you're spending most of your time sending emails and on calls, and actually the implementation isn't really coming through, then we know there's a bit of an issue there. Can you, for instance, start making some of the content changes yourself, just so you can start proving some of that value early on, and make sure that you've got results within the quarter, because we know that it will be a slow journey if implementation isn't really a priority, and there's lots of other opportunities and projects being discussed. In terms of what you can change, so we use Yext, which I know is one of the next talks here, and for the funeral care business, the Google Maps listings are really important for us. We know that we get far more calls coming through the Google Maps listings than our branch pages, for instance. The work was done to optimise this because it was within my control. So you can see where there was an uptick in calls by 20% after the optimisation went live. This is very much the start of a client's journey, so they're looking for a funeral director. So we've got a really crucial, really small window there where we need to attract the client, basically. So this really helped to then get them on site, and then the content on site then helps to extend that client journey online. And obviously this is when our clients need us the most as well, so making sure that we've got the best content and most helpful content online is really crucial. Influencing and personal PR, so again, a really key one, because you need to have that trust around the business, and you need to be shouting about the work that you do. So communicating that far and wide. There will be existing forums that you can tap into and get slots on to showcase trends and your results. Do obviously keep your slides concise. You want to leave with that one point, so that they know exactly why you're there and what you're achieving. Perfect your elevator pitch. So there's always going to be opportunities to sell in what you're doing, and if you have that really clear and focused mindset, it will just make it that bit easier for you. And this is one that came from Roxana, actually, in terms of making new connections. So if, for instance, a lot of us work from home and you're not able to just bump into people as often as before, do make the effort to just put half an hour in someone's diary, once a month. By the end of 6 months, you'll have met 6 new people. An example of this, that trade planner that I mentioned before, who works 18 months out, that was from one of those calls. I wouldn't have found her otherwise. So it's definitely worth persevering with broadening your connections within the business. In terms of education and showing the impact of your work, that's obviously really important to increase that credibility that you mentioned at the start. Having those SEO principles, whether they're shared on an internal wiki or you share them on Slack, again, really useful to just keep it front of mind and make sure that people know that you're available and you're there to help them. You can't do it all on your own at the end of the day. We need to have support across the business. The hypothesis framework is really useful to really predict the impact of your work. I think sometimes people can get a bit daunted by SEO and changes, so actually being really clear as to what you're going to do, what you feel it's going to achieve, having a target behind that and the impact of it makes it really easy to then circle back and report on the changes. Without one, it's really difficult to, when you've got 10 other projects on the go that aren't SEO related. You need to have something that will just tip it over, and this will then help with your credibility as well. Now I know this looks like a really confusing graph, but basically these were the different types of content that went live to help to address those gaps in the client journey for funeral care that I mentioned before. So we had everything from scattering ashes, which was a really important thing to do for our clients when funerals were reduced to just 15 people and they weren't able to meet up as easily as before. That performed phenomenally well for us from what the legalities around it, so where you can actually spread ashes in a park, at sea. There's lots of different, just using Google I could find all these different searches of people performing and started to bake that into our content. The other one was around our awareness side of things, so actually people searching for the immediate questions, so how long after a death is a funeral. That was something that we were a bit wishy-washy about on the site. We just said it depends. By then changing that and saying within 2 weeks, unless there are other circumstances that we went through, we then secured that featured snippet, and that's still driving amazing traffic for us. So it just shows if you're the right kind of site and you are the authority in that sector, then just switching your content slightly and making sure that it's always there for the client does really work for you. And then just a quick slide on recipes examples. So we did a similar thing for the easy segment, so we could tell that a lot of people were searching for easy over like quick, for instance, and just by changing the metadata across 5 recipes to start with, drove a 30% increase in traffic for us. So a great one just to get live amongst all the others. And my last slide on reporting your impact. So do impress your readers. You've got opportunities to do that in a few different ways, but always lead with your best figures. Showcase that, showcase your work. What's the one thing you want them to leave knowing as well? I think if you always start with that, then you've got a starting point. Play back the business's terminology as well. So if they're talking a particular way, then use that to your advantage. It will just be a much more seamless approach. And it's not about showcasing your SEO knowledge at the end of the day, it's about showcasing your impact, because you'll have people from across the business with varying knowledge and awareness of SEO. In terms of automation, Google Data Studio has been mentioned a lot today, but it definitely is your friend. Lots of templates online to use and repurpose. And do share those dashboards so that people can see it, they've got it at their fingertips whenever they need it. And lastly, in terms of incrementality, showcasing that incremental impact of your work is really key to increase your credibility and trust in you. So what does that look like, over the last 4 weeks, the last quarter, the last 12 months? Sometimes just looking at it week on week, on month to month, doesn't really give you enough insight. So really important to have a different view on it as well. And then do layer up your top performing changes. So this is an example for our ecom website where we started at month 1, then started making those incremental changes over the next few months, driving a 30% increase in revenue. That, I can sleep happy at night because I've got those figures behind me to showcase. So definitely want to keep on thinking what can I do, what can I showcase, and always go back to this is the thing that I want to be showing. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Sorry, just one question.